You're dialed in to Byron Velvick's Fish Tales. Real talk, real tactics, and the stories that make it all worthwhile. Byron Velvick's Fish Tales is brought to you by Livingston Lures, Trika Fishing, Mercury Outboards, and CAYMAS Boats. Without further ado, here's Byron.
Hey, Byron Velvick, back with another episode of Fish Tales, and I am so blessed, so excited to have a very dear friend of mine, a friend for a very long time. He doesn't really need an introduction because everybody in the fishing industry knows this guy. He's a legend, not just among fishermen, the whole boating community. It's Earl Bentz, and God, Earl, I got you on Fish Tales. Thank you for watching the shows. Thank CAYMAS for sponsoring the shows. And it's just a pleasure to have a friend on for the next hour just to tell all the stories we've kind of hinted about before the podcast, but especially just get rolling on talking about the man, the myth, the legend, the guy himself, Earl Bentz.
Well, you get to be a legend when you get old, that's for sure. But
Oh,
we're proud to certainly have you on our team. Our relationship goes back many, many decades. And back
well,
when you were a boat guy, you lived in California out there and sold champion boats, I believe you're a rep for that.
Bass Cat and then Viper. And the greatest thing, Earl, was that even though we were in competing boat companies, I never talked bad about any boat company that you built, you started, you owned. And you knew I was just a rep that tried to sell the brands that I represented. And more importantly, you were just always nice to me. And if, if we saw each other at a show, Earl, I was friends with Janet. I knew your daughters. And yet I was just a guy that was with another company up until you finally brought me in with Triton. So it was great to have that relationship with you, Earl, and it goes way back to before we ever were on the same team together with Triton. It was you were the consummate gentleman, even though we sold two different brands of boats.
We do. Well, that's been a cherished relationship for sure. We've had a lot of fun over the
Well, you've
years.
been a mentor to me with my daughter, by the way. Oh my gosh, Earl, my daughter just started high school, and I know you walk this walk. Earl, the people that are watching this have no idea, but you have, the beautiful daughters you have. How old are they now? Tell me about the daughters a little bit.
Our youngest is 34. Our oldest just turned 40. We have six grandchildren, and we have 5 boys and a girl. So after having raised 3 daughters, now to have 5 grandsons and 1 little 2-year-old granddaughter. Little boys are certainly different
Oh,
than little girls. We're
you have
taking them hunting and fishing. I just took 4 of them to Africa, and yesterday, 2-year-old grandson had his birthday, and everybody was there. And my little 2-year-old granddaughter.
brand new granddaughter. So you know what? You've helped me. Like you were inspiring me to understand my daughter. And here she is going to high school, and she walks out that first day of high school, and I'm like, honey, are you going to wear that to school? Because you remember she showed up with her dungarees, you call them, with holes in her dungarees. And now she's going to public school. And I got to be out there saying, honey, I'm your dad. And I gotta look at what you're wearing. And thank God she still checks with me. And I'm blessed that she still comes out and says, Dad, what do you think about this outfit? What do you think about that outfit? And it's a better dynamic than a lot of the parents are having. Because Earl, beginning of school, some of those parents are like, you're not going to wear that to school. Yes, I am. You can't stop me. You're going to go out there looking like one of those girls, and on and on and on. And I'm lucky to have a daughter that's actually listening to me, asking my opinion about her outfits. And she still laughs about Uncle Earl giving her a lot of grief about having holes in her jeans when we came and sat in that
Well,
office right there.
didn't know what dungarees were, and I had to educate her. Looked at me like I had 3 heads, and I said, "Yeah, hold your dungarees, girl. She's a sweet, beautiful girl. You're a great dad, and you're very blessed. She's sweet as she."
Earl, people know that, and maybe people don't know, you start off with racing, you start off in boats, but let's go back to the beginning because you kind of started talking about it before we got this podcast going. But how did Earl Bentz get started in the boat business, and what was the background and the passion that became what it is now, the owner of CAYMAS Boats?
Well, I was raised. Both of my grandparents farmed, and farmed tomatoes, corn, cucumbers, soybeans. I worked on the farm, cropping tobacco, uh, working in tobacco. I would watch my family pray for it to rain and pray for it to quit raining, pray for it to rain, pray for it to quit raining. And thought, be kind of neat to have a job that I've got a little more control over than waiting on the rain. And we lived on the water. I had a boat at a very young age, and anytime my boat sank or engine broke down, I'd have to take it to my uncle who had a boat repair shop, DF Engines, and he'd have to fix it for me. Well, in May of 1966, he asked me to come work for him. Well, at 14 years old, I had a car and a driver's license at that time. I could drive the car back and forth to school, back and forth to work. I couldn't have a bunch of kids in the car with me. It was a restricted license. So I went to work for him for $1.25 an hour. My first job was scraping barnacles off the bottom of a commercial crab boat in May when it was 100 degrees. There were oysters, barnacles. And it took me 2 weeks. I had the fiberglass, the seams. I mean, it was the most awful job in the world. And I'd say those oysters are rotten. I said, man, if this
You're
boat,
16
I don't
years
know
old.
what
This is 1966. You're 16 years old and you're scraping barnacles off of boats?
14 years old. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so anyway, he ended up teaching me how to rig boats. And eventually, 2 years later, he got me into powerboat racing. And he was a boat racer himself. And he started me off with a small class running 70, 75 miles an hour and worked me up into the bigger classes later on.
How old were you?
Yeah.
So when did you start racing boats? At what age were you? 16, you're racing a boat. Wow.
Senior in high school at 16. And he bought me a boat motor and toy race boat and a 115 horse motor. Said, there it is, put it together and go race it. And he tuned my engine for me. He knew how to get a lot of horsepower out of it. And I drove for him for 5 years. And we were very successful. We ended up driving a little small homemade boat that he designed, built by Bruce Robertson in South Carolina, named the Wild Beachy. Our races and outran a lot of the factory team. And I ran the right people in front of the right people. And in 1973, I was invited to join the Mercury racing team along with Bill Seabold and Reggie Fountain. So
Reggie Fountain? The Reggie Fountain? So you and Reggie Fountain were racing together as kids?
Not only were we racing together, when we'd go to Europe, Reggie and I roomed together for 8 years. Mercury, they wouldn't let the rooms were so expensive. They wouldn't let us get separate rooms. So Reggie and I were roommates, and Reggie's still a dear friend today.
Oh my gosh, the Reggie Fountain, the Fountain Boats, unbelievable.
Great driver, great person, very kind, and we just had a great time. And meanwhile,
you guys are in your 20s, right, Earl?
Oh, Reggie was in his 30s. Reggie's 12 or 13 years older than I.
Oh,
so I was trying to get on the block. I was 21 years old.
Yeah,
and that was in 73. Well, in 1975, I went to work for Hydrosport Boats. Hydrosport was a young 1-year-old company that had 15, 17-foot bass boat. Joe Reeves, the guy that owned Hydrosport, was kind enough to teach me the manufacturing end of the boat with us, which I loved. I mean, I knew I'd found my niche. But I'd race about 7 or 8 months out of the year and worked in R&D and designed boat hulls with his R&D department and frankly, boat manufacturing. And he was very, very good to me. And I worked with Joe for 5 years while I raced for Mercury. And the last 3 years when I was there, I ran the company. And I worked for Joe for 8 years. The first 5 years, I raced for Mercury. At the same time, we'd go to Europe and stay 2 months and race in Italy and England and France and Holland. And just had a great time, got to see the world. Here's a little young kid with certainly not the wherewithal. I was not raised wealthy by any means.
Wow. And you're racing in all of Europe? You're out racing all around for Mercury in Europe as this small town kid with not a pot to piss in when you were young, and now you're traveling the world racing boats?
I didn't have two nickels to rub together. And
now you're in Europe.
$25 a day per diem to eat on. They paid for our rooms, and obviously they sent all these wonderful mechanics and technicians and rigged the boats for us, got it prepared for us. And we had a $5 million a year race program. That was the budget for the Mercury racing.
Which is, I can't imagine what that is now.
It would be a lot of money today, a lot of money back then. And then we were very successful. I wouldn't take anything in the world for it. Fast, and your body, anything much over 115 or 20 miles an hour, hitting the water without a capsule, you hit the water like a flat rock. And
What's the worst?
well,
I've never asked this question. Now that we're having this conversation, I've known you for all these years, Earl. What's the worst boating accident you had while you were racing? I got to hear it because I've never asked it before.
I had several, but my worst was at Lake Eufaula.
Lake Eufaula.
And it really wasn't my fault. A pleasure boat on the outside of the course, a great big motor yacht threw about a 3-foot roller through the race course, and I hit it. The boat went up and over backwards. I broke my back in 3 places. I spent a month in the hospital, and I broke 4 ribs, broke my jaw in a couple of places, and it killed me.
It must have been the Wild Wild West.
Well, it was. That was the year I went. When I moved to Oshkosh, Wisconsin as a race driver for Mercury, I had a back brace on. I couldn't even get in a boat for 6 months. So, but I raced for 8 years after that. So,
that's why you built such fast boats. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, I've always liked performance. And, Ray Scott and I first became friends when I went to work for Hydrosport because Ray was so interested in safety for his competitors on the bass circuit. So we had a board attached to our life vests that shut the engine off if we were ejected from the boat, called kill switch. Well, the engine company did not put kill switches on control boxes.
Really?
Ray was very instrumental in that, and he would call me and say, "Tell me about this kill switch. How does this thing work?" And a guy named Bill Huntley at P&H Marine actually came up with the first aftermarket kill switch, and Ray got where he would demand that be put as standard in every bass boat, every competitor in his events. Life jackets, the same thing. Life jacket requirement. We wore life jackets with collars around them. We had some life jackets that had parachutes on the back and to slow your body speed down before you hit the water. And
parachutes on the back of a life jacket?
We had foot throttles,
Yeah.
Back then, there were no foot throttles. We had foot throttles in race boats. They had a spring on them when you let your foot off or came back to neutral. And Ray was very inquisitive about that. Tell me how that thing worked. But it didn't take the engine out of gear, but at least it would slow the boat down to an idle should you become ejected from a bass boat or obviously from a race boat. Our engine would come back to idle and be shut off out of there. So that's when Ray and I first became friends in the mid-70s. And
the concept of kill switches and life jackets and all that in the bass tournaments was brand new. He was looking to bring that into all of his tournaments, and he was looking at you talking to you about safety features, basically.
Ray and Bob Cobb were both very interested, and Bob would write about it in Bassmaster magazine, and safety, making the sport safer for people. And that's back when the engine horsepower started going up, the big V6s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Ray, Bobby Murray, I'll tell a quick story on Ray. Bobby Murray and I lived together. We were both single. I had a house on the lake in Nashville, and Bobby was fishing, worked for Hydrosport as I worked for Hydrosport. He was gone fishing tournaments all the time, and I was boat racing, gone 7 months out of the year. Similar to Bob, we'd kind of pass in the middle of the night. We were having lunch one day after he'd had a tournament the week before, and I had a boat race. Well, in boat racing, I didn't have quite as much competition as he did in the tournament field. But I never fished a bass tournament. I bass fished, but I never fished a bass tournament in my life. So we were having lunch, and Bobby asked me, how'd you do? And I said, well, I don't know. Whether I finished second or third or one. I'm, driving from Murphy with the horsepower we had. You didn't finish much further down than third at the work. And I said, how'd you do? And he said, well, I finished 17th or 18th. And jokingly, I said, well, golly, if I couldn't do any better than that, I'd quit. Find me another profession. and Bobby said, he said, I bet you $100 you couldn't finish in the top 50.
Really?
And that's
He said
back
$100 you wouldn't finish in the top 50.
$100. He took $100, laid on the table. Said, I bet you $100 you couldn't finish in the top 50. Well, I pulled 100 out, and I said, I'll bet you by golly I can. Went back to the office. We called Ray Scott. And there was, back then, you flipped a coin. There was no elites and all that stuff. They called an invitational.
Pro draw.
And yeah, we'd flip a coin to see whose boat we'd take, and then we would flip another coin to see who got the boat the first half of the day and who got the second half. So I really wasn't familiar with all those kind of funky rules, but called Ray, and Bobby told Ray about the bet that we had. And of course, Ray said, hey, baby, you're in, you're in. Send your $200 or $300, whatever it was. So I'm entering my first BASS tournament. This is mid-70s.
What lake?
So we go to Kentucky Lake.
Okay.
Bobby Murray, won the first Bassmaster Classic. So he was already a pretty established pro, a dang good fisherman, a good guy too. 3 days of practice, 3 days of tournament. Well, I'd fished Kentucky Lake many times, but never fished a BASS event. Bobby would have me up at daylight. I had to charge my own batteries. That's another thing. Boat racing, I had a whole crew of people that I didn't have to fill up
you
my
had a whole
boat
pit crew.
I had a pit crew. We had like 13 or 14 guys that did all that stuff. I just kept up my helmet and life jacket. I'm charging my own batteries, filling my boat up with gas. Bobby's keeping me up till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, putting new line, even doing practice, putting new line on my reels. And,
yeah.
I am get to bed at midnight, get up at 4. And I am exhausted, absolutely plumb wore out. And I wasn't doing very well in the tournament. I was in the top 75 or 80. But the last day came around, and I'm laying in the bed at about 7 or 7:30, the last day of the tournament. The phone running. And I picked the phone up, hello. And this voice on the other end at the Ray Scott. And said, the early bird. Yeah. Ray Scott, yeah. I said, hey, Ray. He said, what the heck you doing, boy? This ain't no dang boat race. Get your butt down here. Your partner's mad in the setting hen. They blasted off an hour and a half ago, and what are you doing? I said, man, I am wore out, Ray.
You missed the blast off by an hour and a half. An hour and a half after the boats are gone, you're still sleeping in the hotel.
We were going to use my boat. My partner didn't have a boat. And I really felt bad, but man, I was dead. So I get down there, and my partner gets in the boat with me. I told him, I said, hey, man, you can go with your fish, take the front of the boat all day long. I am so sorry. I'm a boat racer. I said, these bass guys, I've got a new respect for what they do. 6 days in a row, 18-hour days, gassing your own boat, charging your own batteries. I'm going back to boat racing.
I hope Bobby Murray had you sign that $100 bill. He kept it. He won that 100. Bobby Murray won 100 off you.
$100. Yeah, I finished like 58 or something, so I had to pay him $100.
Yeah.
Shorty Lavender won. Shorty Lavender, I think was his name, won that tournament. Bobby finished second. And I fished more local regional tournaments after that. I used to fish 30 or 35 tournaments a year. But I think I fished a few more BASS tournaments. Did not enjoy the success that the Rick Clun and the Hank Parker's, Bill Bence, and all the pros did back then. But it was
well, Bill Dance is going to be a guest on the show here real soon. And, and talking to you about that, you met Bill Dance when you were fishing the tournaments or just when you were with Hydrosport? but you met Bill Bence when you were a kid,
I,
basically, right?
I was 21 years old, and I had just started work for Haversport. Bill was sponsored by Haversport at that time. He was fishing a tournament on Toledo Bend, and I was taking a new boat to him to film and fish out of. And I got there the last day of the event, and he had just practiced for 3 days of tournament, and it went over and typical Bill Bence made me feel like he'd known me for 20 years. Put his
Wow.
arm around my neck and said, "Man, I appreciate you bringing that boat." Said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "We're driving back to Tennessee." And he said, "The crappie are biting." He said, "Let's go fishing." I just fished at least 6 days in a row. Typical
Yeah.
Bill Bence.
After
So
6 days of competition. Oh my gosh.
so we go out and we fish, and of course, Bill, let me take that fish off the hook for you. And he bites your jig off, so you got to retie it. I mean, just cutting up all day long. And that began a 50-year friendship with Bill and I, a guy that I've got tremendous respect for and admiration. And a year or two later, I went into sales at Haversport, had a sales territory. Bill, of course, lived in Memphis. And he would do a seminar for me at any dealership at any time. He said, "All I ask, come pick me up and take me home." And just, anyway,
He's a great guy. I'm
he
looking
was
forward to having him on the show. He's been such a nice guy. I mean, my whole career, it was amazing how fast he became so pleasant. And as soon as you run into him, you make a friend, but then he doesn't forget you. Like you're on tour and he runs into you again, and goes, "Hey Byron," Bass Pro Shop. "Hey Byron." You're like, "Man, Bill Bence knows me by name." Like, how cool is it that he takes that much of an interest in how's that going? How's this going? And he follows he's really knowledgeable about who you are. And when you're fishing, he's so supportive, and he's been such a great guy in my career. I was just a
only
fan.
one, there's only one Bill Bence. There'll only be.
How did you go from hydro sports, your first boat company? I mean, then you decide I fish some tournaments. I've been racing boats. Now I'm working with hydro sports. Then you became a boat. Then you started building boats. Literally, you got into that aspect of your life.
Well, when I quit racing, I had more time to fish, and I would fish sometimes 2 tournaments a week, regional tournaments, in Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Kentucky Lake, Barkley, Priest, Dale Hollow, Center Hill Lake, Pickwick, and I love it. And I had some mostly buddy tournament. Mickey Bates, Bill Huntley, Harold Mice, and we fished a lot of tournaments together. And I fished 30, 35 a year and absolutely loved it. Well, the last 3 years I was with Hydrosport after I quit racing, and one of the prerequisites for me to be able to buy Hydrosport at the end of 3 years, the verbal agreement that Bill and I had, was I could race because we had several hundred employees and too much responsibility. And I got married that year too. And she didn't mind my racing, except she said, "We're not going to have any kids if you quit racing." I'm not racing.
Wait,
Good excuse.
Janet said she wanted you to quit racing before she'd have kids with you. I mean, I love Janet, but she
What you just
she gave
said.
you the ultimatum.
But the ultimatum was this: you can race, we'll get married, but if you want to have a family and children, you'll have to quit racing because if something would happen, I'm not raising kids by myself.
Yeah.
Fair statement. So I was ready at 29 years old when I retired from racing. I traveled the world 7, 8 months out of the year racing, had a lot of fun doing so. Wouldn't take anything for 21 to 29 years old, the 8 years that I drove for Mercury. I was able to travel the world.
Yeah.
The president of Mercury would take me to the Mercury dealer meetings. I got to meet 4,500 of the best Mercury marine dealers in America, which helped build a good foundation for me I left Hydrosport. I did not buy Hydrosport. No hard feelings there. Joe, as I said, he let me race 7, 8 months out of the year and learn the boat manufacturing business.
But he wanted you to buy
And
Hydrosport? Like you had worked your way up from being a rep all the way to where you were considering buying and owning Hydrosport?
that was part of the deal. I was going to leave in December of 1980, leave Hydrosport and start my own business and go with a tough time. Prime rate was 21%. Hydrosport was losing money. And Joe said, if you can take this thing and run it, you got to quit racing to do so. Get it in the black, keep it there for 3 years, and I'll sell it to you for $2 million. I said, really good, but I don't have $2 million. I don't have $20 in the bank. And he said, I'll give you 10% of the profits in the meantime, but, run it, put your own team together. So we did.
Wow.
Successful. And, he changed his mind, and that's okay. I harbor no ill feeling.
So then you start your own company?
I started Stratus Boats, in October of 1983.
You started
We were very
Stratus in
successful.
83. Stratus Boats was the first company you started after Hydrosport.
Had a good team of people, some of which, actually, I've got some people here in CAYMAS today that have been with me for 49 years.
49 years?
Many of them. One guy started with me in 1978. Yes, sir. No, excuse me, 1976. 76.
And they've been with you through
78.
Stratus and Triton and now CAYMAS all the way through. They've been with you that whole time.
Very humbling. And I've got, I don't know, 30 to 40 of them that have been, 100 of them have been with me 30 to 40 years. Barry Vaughn, who runs inside sales here, we were having lunch last Friday with a new dealer. And I said, Barry, how long have you been with me? He said, I'm 37 years.
Wow.
Since he was 18, 19 years old.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, I remember you told me, you said some of these guys have been, they were with you since they're kids and now they got gray hair. It's like these guys have spent their whole lives with you in the boat building business.
They have, and we've grown together and supported each other. And, I've watched them get married, have kids. We all have maturity.
So what happened between Stratus and Triton? So you go Stratus. I know how I love the story. I can't wait for you to tell it. I know why you named Triton, and that's music to my ears having a young daughter. But hold on before we get to that story. Stratus, how long did you own Stratus, and did you end up selling it?
OMC, Johnson, but first of all, Brunswick, the Mercury people that Brunswick owned Mercury, they bought Bayliner and Seaway. Jack Reichert was chairman of Brunswick. He called me literally the same day that the Seaway deal was announced. And he said, it's time for the engine builders, carriage builders to get together. And we'd like to buy your company next. The very next day, Charlie Strang, the chairman of Johnson Avenue, the company called OMC, the parent company, he called. Yes, you see what Brunswick's doing, Mercury, we've got to respond. And would you be interested in having a talk with me? So I've got the chairman of the two biggest outboard brands in the world calling me up.
Oh.
And I didn't want to sell to either one of them. But it's like Jack Reichert and Charlie Strang said, you can either be on the outside looking in or the inside looking out. Well, since I did not own an engine company, and the engines were about 40% of, look at the deal from both companies, Brunswick wanted to do their own sales and marketing. They wanted me to be the engineering, design, and manufacturing arm. That got rid of all my salespeople and marketing people who helped me build a brand, which didn't appeal to me at all.
No.
Charlie Strang, on the other hand, with OMC, said, we're not changing anything. And he said, I will put it in writing. There will be no changes unless you agree to it. In fact, he even sent out a letter to his whole executive team at OMC and said, don't call Earl unless he calls you.
Wow. And you love that. That's music to your ears right there. That's got Earl written all over it.
I stayed there 9 years. Charlie was there. Charlie and a guy named Jim Chapman. They were there for 8 years as chairman and president and CEO. They left me alone. We grew the company sixfold. Largest bass boat company in the world, by far. Blew by everybody else.
Stratus was?
And it was a lot of fun.
Stratus?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That became the largest boat company out there, the largest boat company in the world. I mean, bass boat company. And then,
We ended up buying Navisport.
yeah,
I started Javelin under that brand. We were building 55 fiberglass boats a day, which is a lot of
55
boats.
glass boats a day. Javelin, Hydrosport, Stratus, all in the same OMC family.
And I had fun. And, they let me put my whole team together until they brought a guy in. I won't give any names because
I
I
get
don't
it.
want to embarrass him anybody embarrass himself. But
On the brakes.
he and I got along like water and oil. He knew nothing about. I watched him catch his first fish. He didn't know which end of a rod and reel to hang on to, and he was more interested in someone with a Harvard MBA, which he had, or Northwestern, or Duke, one of these Ivy League schools, than experience in the boat business. And I had a guy named Tony Meadows who ran manufacturing for me. We had the most efficient manufacturing in all 16 boat companies in ONC. And we had a meeting, and this new chairman that I didn't care for. From this point forward, when you go to hire someone, make sure that you don't hire anyone that doesn't have a degree in their area of responsibility. So a degree in HR, a degree in engineering, a degree in manufacturing, a degree in sales and marketing, a degree in this, real that. And so I said, well, does that mean the guy that ran manufacturing for me, I said, I think he went through the 9th grade, but I'm not really sure. I'm going to fire him and find somebody with a degree.
Oh,
Fantastic, which I was. And well, no, but if he were leave or something, I think he's the best guy you got, and you're all out of your 7,000 employees in boat manufacturing. So anyway, I got along with him like water and oil.
Oh my gosh, that guy must have drove you nuts.
Adequate notice.
Yep.
I gave about 4 months' notice to Bill France, who on NASCAR Bill was on our board. Rich Terlake, the chairman of Harley, was on our board, and I went and told them, I said, you need to get rid of this tackle. And they didn't, started Triton.
So was there a non-compete, or were you able just to start Triton? I mean, you went from obviously that large boat building thing. You were able to just go ahead and say, I'm out, I'm gone, I'm leaving, and I can go right into and start Triton?
I had a 5-year, when I sold the OMC, I had a 5-year non-compete. It had been expired before.
There you go.
And
so you can jump right on over.
I wouldn't sign another one. They came and wanted me to sign one. I said, look, if I'm happy, I'll stay. If I'm not happy, I'll tell you to give you an opportunity to straighten it out, which I did tell them, but they didn't do it. We're doing over $100 million a year in 3 years at Triton. So
yeah,
took off pretty good.
And you named it after the Little Mermaid, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think you said that was the Little Mermaid, your daughter and the Little Mermaid.
King Triton. Yeah. My girls have had a big influence on what the name Triton and then CAYMAS. Beryl, my oldest, came up with the CAYMAS is a festival held in Cayman Island this year called the CAYMAS Festival.
Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know how you. I know there was CAYMAS Wines, but that has a U in it. So I thought I go, maybe it's not the wine CAYMAS Wines.
Totally different. Yeah.
It's a CAYMAS. So how did CAYMAS come up? Because you said that was off of a festival, in the Cayman Island Festival. I didn't know about this.
Yeah, it's a festival that's held in the summertime called the CAYMAS Festival. We'd go down to Cayman Islands for spring break and take all the kids. We love the Cayman Islands. It's friendly people, laid back atmosphere, good food, decent fishing. And, we just love the Cayman Islands. And when you something that doesn't intimidate, alienate, upset anyone. So it's kind of hard. And then something that no one else is using. So, anyway, it's stuck and it's worked out pretty well.
I can remember, Earl, I've known you for a long time, and you brought me into Triton. You were a godsend. I think you remember the story, but I got fired from let's see, Ranger, FLW, and everything to do with FLW through Irwin Jacobs. And you remember I was walking this thin line with Irwin Jacobs, and I was dealing directly with Irwin because it was right after The Bachelor. And of course, I had Mercury and Ranger on The Bachelor, and I was going on my dates on the show and whatnot. And so all these people see it. Erwin Jacobs was courting me like crazy. And then ESPN comes along. Got to tell the story to the people. They don't realize what happened here. But my Earl Bentz story started not just being a friend of yours at the shows, but we got together because Erwin wanted me not to take the deal with Bass Center on ESPN. So remember, he was like, I don't want you on ESPN. I don't want you to do Bass Center. And I said, Earl, I'm a professional fisherman for you. I'm not a broadcaster. I'm not a host. You know, I'm running your range. Erwin. I go, Erwin, I go, you know, I'm running your boat and you're going to do an M&M's deal. I'm fishing FLW, Erwin. I'm not on the broadcasting. He goes, well, we're going to be on Fox Sports South and we're going to be on Fox Sports Bell Net or whatever. I go, ESPN is wanting me to be on this show. And if I'm at one of your tournaments, they will come cover me. He goes, I don't want ESPN at my tournament. I don't want you in my M&M shirts in my Ranger boat if you're going to be on ESPN Bass Center or anything to do with them, you know. And so he goes, you're fired if you take that job. And I got fired at Christmas. And Earl, I'll never forget, I'm in Tampa with Mary. I get a call from you. I got to tell this story. It was the best Earl story. I get a call from you. I had just gotten fired. And John Holguin at Mercury said, hey, Earl, I think, you know, he knew that I'd been with Mercury for 30 years. They're my longest sponsor. And all of a sudden, John Holguin rallied with you to try to find me a boat deal, apparently, because he knew I was having a really bad Christmas break. And I get this call and I'm out to lunch with him. With Mary, I'll never forget it. And you tell me, you go, hey, get a napkin and write this down because I want to give you a little Christmas present. And you gave me the Christmas present of all Christmas presents by letting me know that I still had a boat company that wanted me, and Mercury and Triton and you gave me a chance to sleep better at night. And I wasn't being pulled apart like taffy, and I wasn't being jerked around with the Ranger and FLW and Erwin Jacobs and all this other stuff. But suddenly you came in and you said, hey, I want you to join Triton, Mercury Triton. We're going to take good care of you. And we've worked together ever since. And that was the beginning of my relationship with you. And Triton Boats and Mercury Outboards brought us together with John Holguin. If you remember that story,
know what John Holguin's doing now.
I don't know what John Holguin's doing.
Well, yeah. John worked for Mercury for many years. Great guy. He was an OEM, handle builders like us. And he would handle us, Ranger, Bass Pro, anybody that rigged Mercury engines on boats, John would handle them. And the other one, I took him to Mexico to catch his first bass. He'd never caught a bass in his life. And he's not a bass fisherman, but he did catch a few. And he's a good sport. And John ended up coming to work with me at Triton and CAYMAS as our head of sales here at marketing before Todd came in. And he is a prime example of someone who is not an outdoorsman. And when the dealers first met John, they would say, where'd you find this guy? The sales for Bass Pro Company.
Right.
And I said, give him a chance, because in another year, you're going to come to me and say he's the best guy I've ever had. And he would study all the demographics, all the brands that sold that market. And a year later, the dealers would say, he's the best rep I've got.
Wow.
So John is still a dear friend of mine. Still a dear friend of mine today. He's living in Boston now. He's a city councilman. He works for Lay's potato chips. Gets up at 3 a.m. and puts potato chips on the shelf in grocery stores. John just got to be doing something. And
that's just something to do for fun.
He works. He was so excited when he was working for me at a sales territory. Came to my office one day, had on a brown jacket, brown boots, but you never wore boots. You wear tennis shoes, brown pants, and a tan shirt. I said, John, you look like you work for UPS. He said, I do. He said, it's a part-time gig. I got all my boat orders in. I'm bored. I don't have anything to do, so they're paying me $12 an hour. And that's just Holden. So
you gotta be kidding me.
Holden's a good friend.
So you sell Triton. Now I know you. So now this is where I come in, where I know Earl. We're friends. I'm fishing for Triton boats, and then you sell to Brunswick and you retire, and then you get to explore your passion of hunting. And I remember you hunted and fished and hunted and fished. You met George Gods, a guy that was on Going Coastal, one of our first guests on ESPN, and you meet George Gods through Going on Coastal because we were filming down there in Stuart Floater. You were on our show. You caught your Goliath grouper. I think you said I'm one and done with the Goliath grouper. You caught your one and only giant Goliath grouper under that
Yeah.
bridge. And you said, hey, that's fun. One time only, but that was with George. And I think you got bored being retired, basically. After all the fishing and hunting, I think you were ready to go back to work. If I'm not mistaken, CAYMAS Boats came out of you just not wanting to be out of the boat business.
I only stayed retired for 3 months, and I did go hunting and fishing quite a bit. But after Brunswick bought the company, I was working 220, 230 days a year, still doing shows, which is what I love. It's and when Johnny Morris bought Ranger and Triton, and I worked with him for a couple of years, and it's just the old saying, it's a lot more fun to drive than it is to ride. And sometimes I'm not a good rider.
That's a great
And
way to put it.
so I
So,
told Dad, I said, I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna try it. So we went to Italy. We went to a home in Florida, did a little hunting and fishing just about every day. And I got up one morning and I said, man, I can't do this. I'm miserable. That was after 3 months. And I said, I miss the people.
Mhm.
I miss my employees. I miss the dealers. I miss the fishermen. What am I gonna do? I said, I'm going back to Tennessee and talk to some of my old crew and see if they've got the energy to go do it one more time.
Wow.
I said, go start another company.
Wow.
So that was in 2018, about 7 years ago.
And you built a brand new plant. Like you didn't even go back to the old Triton plant. You built from the ground up. I mean, that building you have, that CAYMAS plant is state of the art, brand new. It was when we used to drive to Triton, that was just the side of a mountain over there that I drove by all the time. And now that's the monolith that is CAYMAS. And that was your vision, is to start over
We
again,
built
right?
a 250,000 square foot facility. It's set up to build boats in. It's a long, I don't know, I've never made it how long, a couple of 1,000 feet long, maybe.
Yeah.
New office building. Again, it's the same group of people, within 3 or 4 months of starting this thing, I had 150 of my old Triton employees here because Triton was now being built in Arkansas and Missouri. And they were anxious to get out of the other work that they were in, doing things other than the boat business. Whether you're a supervisor, a hourly employee, a boat builder, boat people like building boats. And they just, working at the Ford got a cylinder head plant in Dixon, or the Ford glass plant in Nashville, or DuPont, or Nissan, or whatever. They just missed boats. So they came back, and I was honored and
Oh,
fortunate to get them.
man. That's
So now
awesome.
we've
So
got a lot of their kids and grandkids.
that's amazing. So you basically announce you're going to go back into the boat business. You say, I'm going to start a new boat company here in Ashland, Tennessee. And just like that, you get 150 people that have known you, worked for you, were working other jobs, give their 2-week notice, and come running to you to go back and start CAYMAS right from the get-go. That's so cool.
Basically, exactly
That's
that.
awesome. I mean, Earl, that's like, and now you got their kids working there and everything else. That is such an amazing story that you had that kind
Well,
of
we're
loyalty.
hiring more people, getting the first 150 of my old people that had been with me probably an average of 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
Some, many more, as we said earlier.
Yeah.
But getting the next round, another 150 on top of that, because of the environment that we're in today, it takes time to call, if you will, read through them and get the people who share the passion that other people share of building a good quality boat.
Well, you guys
I
build
get
the best.
energized every time
Go ahead. You get energized. Go ahead.
I'm energized every time I walk through the facility, with the people, they're the ones that make it work, and our dealers, and, a lot of the dealers, I'm dealing with their children and grandchildren now.
That's amazing.
So different,
And
And,
CAYMAS boats, I mean,
listen, I've been in the business a long.
what's saving your butt now, what's really been the key thing is the saltwater boats you're building. And you've explained this to me that right now the bass boat market is really struggling because the interest rates, I've heard so much about this from you, but what you're building in these big boats, I want to say they're flying off the shelves, but you got a really dedicated audience of saltwater guys that are paying cash for these big boats. Like the 40 footers, right? And I think you got two different types of big 40-foot boats along with the 30s.
We've always built saltwater boats. At Hydrosport, we built center consoles. At Stratus, we built center consoles. At Triton, we built boats up to 35 feet. And it's a different buyer. But here's the phenomenon that occurred that a lot of people don't realize, Byron, that we've got time. It's interesting. In 1980, when prime rate went to 21%, the average bass boat loan was 3 years, 36 months. There were 60,000 Federation members in this country. Well, I remember distinctly when, in order for people to get the payments down where they could afford them, rather than 36 months, they went to 120 months, 10 years on their note, because the rates were so much higher to get the payment so they could afford it.
Wow.
Bass guy really doesn't care how much it is. He does care, but how much is it a month to put in his budget?
That's right.
So
That's
that
right.
was in 1980. Well, then you fast forward to 1998 when Helen Severe changed the horsepower limit from 150 to 250. So now, rather than buying an 18-footer with a 150 for 40 to 50 grand, you're buying a 21-footer with a 250 for $100,000, twice the cost. Then the payments went to 20 years. So he could afford the boat. So from 10 years to 20 years to get the payments down.
Wow.
Well,
20
today,
years.
now the payments are already at 20 years. The banks won't go 40 years. And the interest rates today are between 7 and 8%.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy looks at his boat that's wood free, that, we all the wood out of them in 1996. So he got a boat that doesn't have a soft transom, a soft floor. It's going to last a long time. He pulled off the old 2-stroke, puts on a 4-stroke, new pan optics, electronics for 30 or 35 grand rather than buying a new one for 100. Well, when interest rates come down, and they will, I'm convinced Trump's going to get them down to half of what they are today. As soon as we get Jerome Powell out of office, get him on let him go to retirement home or whatever he's going to do. I've had all of him I want to get rates down.
Right.
And so that's at our bass customers. There's a lot of pent up demand, but we got to get the guy looks out in his backyard and he sees his bass boat that's 10 years old. His payment's $400 a month. He can afford that. He can't afford 800 to 1,000 a month.
Right.
But when we get rates down, because of the pent up demand, the bass business takes off again. Saltwater customer has never changed.
Yeah.
We're dealing in a lot of cases with extremely wealthy people that just write a check for it.
For $1 million boat. $1 million boat. They write a check for $1 million for a boat.
Or more.
Yeah.
The walleye market is pretty darn good. We've got a new walleye boat we're going to introduce. I think it goes in production 17th or 18th of September. We just completely redid our bass boat console. We got a new 21-foot XS. We got a new 20-footer with a day box in our 20-foot bass boat. So we've invested millions in our freshwater new product development to be ready when that market does come back, and it's going to come back next year when rates come down, because they're going to come back. We're sitting here talking right now, they're going to come back.
Right.
But
I'm almost close to an hour. I've just started. I get this list of notes here, And I'm like, oh my gosh, Earl, I'm running out of time already because I don't want to take too much of your Monday away from you. But I got to ask you, we have a segment. I know I teased it with you before. It's called The One That Got Away, and it doesn't need to be a fish.
The memory still haunts him. He lost by 2 ounces.
In this case, I think it might be a hunting story or maybe a business story. But in the world of The One That Got Away, Earl Bentz, what is your number one that got away?
Oh boy, let's see. I would say the one that almost got away is my wife.
Really? Janet is the one that almost got away?
Well,
Because
when we were dating, I was racing. We put 2 IndyCar engines in a boat, 1,900 horsepower. Roger Penske, Keith Duckworth, the Mercury Marine, they asked me, I drove for 2 years, kind of a secret project, compete with Miss Budweiser and Atlas Van Lines. And, we were running 180 miles an hour when the other guys were maybe running 160 or something like that.
gosh.
And we were going to debut this thing at the Gold Cup, which was in Madison, Indiana. And Janet and I had been dating. We thought we were getting along pretty serious. And she was in college. She's 5.5 years younger than me, so she wasn't out in the real world yet. And I'm still up to my eyeballs and building boats and racing. And I said, would you like to go to the Gold Cup with me? And she said, what is the Gold Cup? I said, well, it's kind of like our Indy 500 powerboat race. He said, I'll have to think about that. I said, thought about it. And I said, well, you got to think about that. Maybe I need to rethink this thing. But in fairness to her, she didn't know what the heck the Gold Cup was. So
Right.
She didn't go. I never heard from her when she said she wanted to think about it. So anyway, about a week after the Gold Cup, she called me for the day of cell phone. We've been married 44 years.
Wow.
Said, you going to call me back? I said, I don't know. I have to think about that. And like you had to think about whether you wanted to go to the Gold Cup or not.
Oh.
Pretty stupid, wasn't it? No, anyway, that would have been one that got away. That Janet's been a huge part of my life and success, and one wife, great mother to our daughter, and wonderful grandmother to our 6 grandkids. So
She's a
bigger
blessing.
than any fish I've ever lost, for sure.
Yeah. The one that got away, I
you've been
figured it'd be a
around,
hunting
that's
story with one of, I mean, I know you hunted up in Russia and you've dressed yourself in white after you've done the most exotic hunting of anybody I know. Your big game trophy room there at the Wolf Lodge Creek is unbelievable. And I got lucky enough to fish the pond and stay there at your place and you can do the one that got away on a hunting story if one that got away is a hunting, because I know how passionate you were. So I'd love to hear one of your I love your hunting stories, so fire one off for us before we go.
Well, I have done a lot of exotic hunting in places like Tajikistan, Mongolia, Turkey, Africa, multiple times. We just got back. We just took 4 of our grandsons to Africa, Janet and I did. And our 7th trip over there. And, that was always my lifelong dream, to be able to take a grandchild to enjoy Africa as we have. I've had some close calls, with dangerous game in Africa with lions.
I remember one you said you were afraid you might not get out of there. Like there was places you went that weren't exactly the safest places to be when you were hunting. I can recall you had some stories of places where you were fearing for your life and thinking, man, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this village or hut or wherever you were, in some really, really obscure places in the world.
Right on the Afghanistan border when we were hunting in Tajikistan, and the people were not nice. They weren't friendly. They didn't like us. We didn't like them. And Richard Childress, my NASCAR buddy, was with me. And we did, fortunately, make it out of there. We both got good Marco Polo sheep. When our plane landed in Atlanta, I got out on the tarmac and kissed the ground.
Really?
And I said, I will never go back to it.
Really? It was that hairy? It was that
back
scary?
then, they may have changed. Well, they were all looking for Osama bin Laden. There was a $25 million bounty on his head.
Yeah.
And all Richard and I wanted to do was get our sheep and get the heck out of there, which we did. But not a place where we felt safe. So we were one night we were in Dushanbe, which is the capital of Kyrgyzstan, I guess. Our bed and breakfast, and I'll say that in loose terms, was right next to the Iranian embassy. And about 2 a.m, there's automatic weapon fire, machine gun fire right outside our window. And I bailed out of the bed. We had a double rifle case with those combination locks. I got a mag light by the time to look at the thing, not turn the lights on, get the guns out, loaded my gun. I mean, I'm thinking terrorists are going to come through the door any minute. So, yeah, we're ready to get the heck out of it.
Oh, my gosh.
Wasn't fun.
No. Well, I've taken up an hour of your time, and this is Fish Tales. It's a podcast called Fish Tales, and obviously we have fishing stories. I'm going to end it with the worst hook story ever and I know you fish saltwater. I know you do a lot of freshwater. I have been on the boat with you with George. Luckily, I've never hooked you because I'd be really bummed out if I did, and you've never hooked me. But worst hook story ever in your fishing career.
Worse, we were up on Rainy Lake.
Where at?
And with one of my dealers, Rainy Lake in Canada, catching smallmouth bass on top water plugs. And I had about a 3.5, 4 pound smallmouth, late afternoon, perfect time. The fish were chewing, man. I mean, they were chewing. And I was throwing a baby chugger and a number 4 VMC treble hook went plumb through my thumb, almost all the way through, but really deep.
Oh.
Well, my dealer, Cheryl Watson from Watson's Marine, big guy, his son was with him. His son's 6'5", he's even bigger than Cheryl. And I said, y'all have got to help me, pull this thing out. And big Cheryl, the dad he said, hon, when I see blood, I faint, I'll pass out. So I looked at his son. He said, oh, don't look at me, I'm worse than my dad. So I had to get ice and drive the hook all the way through.
Oh, yourself?
And when
You
it
did it
came
yourself?
through, you could hear it pop. Oh yeah. And of course, blood going everywhere. When the hook popped through, Big Cheryl heard it, and he got weak at the knees. I mean, he didn't even see it. He was about to faint on the bed. I mean, here's this guy that's 6'3", weighs 300 pounds, and anyway, I did get him to get some clippers after I pushed it through, cut off the barb, and pull it back through the other way. So
oh man, that's
I've had
a great
a lot
one.
of hooks. That probably was the worst. We both had great careers. We have both had wonderful careers in this business. It's not over. I will say that I never want to get up again in the morning and not have a purpose and something to do in the industries that I'm passionate about and that I love. Not just the industry, but what makes me passionate about it are the people in it, the employees in this plant, the fishermen that I deal with every day, the wonderful dealers that sell and distribute and service our products. I feel so very blessed to be in this industry, as you should too. We've both been able to make a living and provide for our families in something that's also in an industry that's our passion.
Well, I know you still love fishing. I want to let you know as a guest, I've already checked in with Triton, who's a sponsor of the show, and obviously Livingston. And, you got to let me know what rod you're needing in your arsenal because Triton Fishing wants to get you a rod for being a guest on Fish Tales. And, of course, I'm going to send you a bunch of Livingston baits because you're still out there all the time. And, I know Brad Sr. was out there. He was sending pictures. He was out there at your pond just harvesting fish the other day with the new Triton reel and Triton rod. So Brad Sr., who's been with you. How long has Brad been with you? It's probably 20 years, right? I don't know how long Brad and his wife, Carolyn, have both.
Brad came with me in 1976.
Oh my gosh.
Brad's been with me 49 years.
Brad's been with you 49 years, and his son was
Jimmy
with you.
Hayes about 49 years.
And see, last week he's sending me pictures. He's
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm on Earl's pond. Don't let him see this one. Here's a picture of it. I got to let it go real quick because Earl told me only to catch the small ones. But he's sending me these pictures of the big ones, and he's letting them go. And he's like, check it out, Byron. So your pond has some big ones in it, but I know he was there to harvest small ones. But I want to
Well,
get you a
Brad
trico.
and some of my employees, in fact, they were out there this past Saturday morning. They've taken out about nearly 400 pounds this year. I've got to take out between 600 and 700 pounds, but and it's hard to do with a rod and reel when you're just catching pound and a half fish. If you don't do that, you know, so they take all the food away from the big 8 and 10 pounders. So, you know,
So right
it's
now
part of the
you're
culling
even now,
process
yeah.
that we have.
Yeah, you're harvesting fish right now, and you got a lot to harvest out of that. That lake is so fertile that there's just too many little ones in there, right? Yep.
That's a lot of fun. I mean, I keep 221-foot boats at my dock, and I I love it. I mean, I go out. I tell you what I did. I needed you to come show me how to work that can optics thing. I put it on one of my boats. I don't know how to use that thing, and I'm so envious of these young 20-year-old kids that know how to pinpoint a fish and
Earl,
catch it.
Earl, my
And
13-year-old
you know,
daughter
we
who
didn't
doesn't
talk about
fish.
this. I'm sure you will in your future podcast.
Yep. Yep. My 13-year-old daughter can get in my
Your
boat.
13-year-old daughter.
14, sorry, you're right, 14 now. She just turned 14, but she can sit there and look at my live scope, my Garmin live scope, and actually help me set my settings now. And she does, Camber doesn't fish, but she still laughs at me for my inability to figure out my own electronics in my boat. So I can 100% relate to that. And she's been on your lake before. Camber and I got to fish on that pond once a long time ago. So it's been a great experience, Earl. I can't thank you enough
Oh yeah.
for coming on this show, for being a dear friend, for my relationship now with CAYMAS and you and Janet and the kids and your family to me, man. Your family, and I love you guys. So thank you for being a part of it all, Earl.
Love you too, buddy. Honored to have you as a friend.
Fish Tales has been brought to you by Livingston Lures. Learn more at livingstonlures.com. Fish Tales is also supported by these fine sponsors: Trica Fishing, Mercury Outboards, and CAYMAS Boats.